A beloved young nun died just 1 month after arriving at a peaceful convent. But instead of decaying, her body remained perfectly preserved for over 10 years, until it suddenly vanished in front of dozens of witnesses. Investigators uncovered a terrifying secret buried in century-old church records, and what they found changes everything. On a cold October morning in St. Catherine's Convent in Asheville, North Carolina, dozens of police officers, forensic investigators, and horrified nuns stood frozen around an open viewing chapel. Moments earlier, more than 40 witnesses had watched something that no camera, scientist, or priest has ever been able to explain. The body of Sister Abigail Harper, a young nun who had been dead for over 10 years, had suddenly vanished from inside her glass casket, without anyone touching it. The doors had been locked. The windows were sealed. Security cameras malfunctioned at the exact moment she disappeared. But that wasn't even the most terrifying part. Church archives later uncovered records showing that Sister Abigail had supposedly lived and died in 3 different convents across the United States over the past century. Each time she was buried, each time witnesses mourned her. Yet somehow she always appeared years later in another convent, alive, never aging, carrying no memory of her previous life. Was she a miracle? A curse? Or something that had never been human at all? Stay until the very end, because the final discovery made by investigators has never been explained, and even today, many believe Sister Abigail Harper is still walking among the living. On a warm spring afternoon in 2024, the quiet grounds of St. Catherine's Convent in Asheville, North Carolina, welcomed their newest member. 28-year-old Sister Abigail Harper stepped through the front gates carrying nothing but a small leather suitcase, a Bible, and a warm smile that instantly won over everyone she met. Mother Superior Margaret Collins introduced her to the community during evening prayer, describing her as a transfer from another convent after administrative changes within the diocese. Abigail spoke softly, thanked everyone for their kindness, and by the end of dinner, she already knew every sister by name. The excitement became so overwhelming that several younger nuns playfully argued over who would share a room with her. Sister Emily insisted Abigail should stay in the East Wing because it was quieter. Sister Rachel argued she belonged near the chapel. Even the older sisters laughed as the friendly disagreement continued. Within days, Abigail became the heart of the convent. She helped in the kitchen before anyone asked, cared for elderly sisters through the night, and spent long hours praying in the chapel after midnight. Everyone believed God had sent them a remarkable woman. Yet there was one person who never smiled around Abigail. 86-year-old Sister Helen Brooks would stare the newcomer in complete silence, her hands trembling every time Abigail walked past. One evening, she whispered 6 chilling words. She came back, just like before. The morning after Sister Helen's disturbing words, the convent carried on as if nothing had happened. The younger nuns laughed during breakfast. Mother Superior Margaret Collins organized the day's duties, and Sister Abigail Harper greeted everyone with the same gentle smile that had made her so beloved. But Sister Helen refused to join the others. Instead, she disappeared into the convent's dusty archive room, a place few had entered in years. Shelves filled with aging journals, faded letters, and forgotten photographs lined the walls. She searched frantically until she found a worn leather album marked St. Catherine's Convent, 1974. With trembling hands, she opened it. Halfway through the album was a group photograph of the sisters taken 50 years earlier. Standing in the second row was a young nun. She had the same bright blue eyes, the same calm smile, the same small scar beneath her left ear. It was Sister Abigail Harper. The photograph was dated May 14th, 1974. Sister Helen remembered her clearly. Abigail had arrived unexpectedly, stayed only a month, then died after collapsing during evening prayers. The entire convent attended her funeral, and she was buried in the church cemetery overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. Sister Helen dropped the album in terror. That was impossible. She had buried this woman with her own hands. So who had been living among them for the past month? Or worse, what had walked back through the convent gates? Mother Superior Margaret Collins dismissed Sister Helen's claims as the confusion of old age, but the fear in the elderly nun's eyes refused to fade. To settle the matter once and for all, Margaret, Sister Helen, and two other senior sisters walked to the small cemetery behind St. Catherine's Convent just before sunset. The cemetery held generations of nuns who had devoted their lives to the church. Moss covered many of the weathered headstones, and silence hung over the grounds. Sister Helen led them to the far corner. There, she whispered, a white marble cross stood beneath an old oak tree. Mother Superior brushed away years of dirt and fallen leaves. The inscription slowly came into view. Sister Abigail Harper, born April 2nd, 1951, died June 18th, 1974. Below the dates were the words, faithful in life, faithful in eternity. No one spoke. Mother Superior stared at the grave, then back toward the convent where the new Sister Abigail was preparing dinner. The dates couldn't be wrong. The burial records were stored inside the church, and Sister Abigail, the woman laughing with the other nuns, was only 28 years old. Trying to remain calm, Margaret ordered everyone to keep the discovery secret until they could verify the records. But as they turned to leave, Sister Helen noticed something that made her blood run cold. The soil covering Abigail's grave looked freshly disturbed, as though someone had climbed out from beneath it. Mother Superior Margaret Collins locked herself inside the convent archives that same night, determined to prove there had been some terrible mistake. With Sister Helen beside her, she opened decades of handwritten ledgers, death certificates, and diocesan correspondence dating back more than 100 years. What they uncovered defied every logical explanation. The first record belonged to St. Michael's Convent in Burlington, Vermont. In 1923, a young nun named Sister Abigail Harper arrived without family, served faithfully for exactly 1 month, fell mysteriously ill, and died. Church records confirmed she was buried in the convent cemetery. The second record came from Holy Mercy Convent in Dubuque, Iowa. In 1974, another Sister Abigail Harper appeared. She looked the same age, spoke the same way, and even carried the same handwritten signature. 1 month later, she died unexpectedly and was buried. The third record belonged to St. Catherine's Convent in Asheville, North Carolina. The date of arrival matched exactly 1 month before. 3 convents, 3 different states, 3 deaths, the same woman, the same face, the same name. Margaret's hands trembled as she reached the bottom of the final page. A handwritten note from a priest read, "If she ever returns again, do not bury her. Watch the body. No explanation, no signature, just that single warning." And outside the archive window, someone in nun's habit stood perfectly still, staring in. The warning haunted everyone who knew about it, but Mother Superior Margaret Collins ordered absolute silence. If word spread through the convent, panic would follow. Life continued as normally as possible, though every sister secretly watched Abigail more closely. Strangely, Abigail never acted suspicious. She prayed with the others, laughed during meals, tended the convent garden, and spent hours comforting the elderly sisters. If she was hiding something, she showed no sign of it. Exactly 1 month after her arrival, the impossible happened. The convent bells rang, just after 3 a.m. Several nuns rushed to the chapel, where they found Sister Abigail lying peacefully on the stone floor before the altar. There were no wounds, no signs of struggle, and no indication of illness. Her hands were folded across her chest, as though someone had carefully placed her there. A local physician was called immediately. After a thorough examination, he delivered the heartbreaking news. Sister Abigail Harper was dead. The official cause of death could not be determined. As preparations for her funeral began, Mother Superior remembered the mysterious warning hidden in the archives. Do not bury her. Watch the body. Against the advice of church officials, she refused to authorize a burial. Instead, Abigail's body was placed inside a sealed glass casket in the convent chapel, where the sisters kept watch day and night. None of them realized they had just begun a vigil that would last more than 10 years. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Months became years. Yet the body of Sister Abigail Harper never changed. Inside the sealed glass casket at St. Catherine's Convent, she looked exactly as she had on the night she died. Her skin remained warm in color, her lips never darkened, and not a single sign of decay appeared. It looked as though she had simply fallen asleep. Doctors from Asheville, forensic specialists, and even university researchers were quietly invited to examine her. Every test reached the same conclusion. She was biologically dead, but her body showed none of the natural changes expected after death. The convent never embalmed her. No chemicals had been used. No refrigeration system existed beneath the casket. The phenomenon had no medical explanation. As the years passed, rumors spread far beyond North Carolina. Pilgrims traveled from across the United States, hoping to witness what many called a miracle. Others believed the convent was hiding something sinister. To protect the sisters, church leaders closed the chapel to the public and ordered strict secrecy. Only the residents of the convent were allowed inside. Then, on the morning marking exactly 10 years since Abigail's death, more than 40 nuns gathered for a special prayer service around the glass casket. None of them knew they were about to witness an event that would shatter everything they believed about life and death. The chapel was filled with silence as more than 40 nuns knelt around Sister Abigail Harper's glass casket. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting brilliant colors across the polished floor, while Mother Superior Margaret Collins led the anniversary prayer. Every sister had her eyes on the casket. No one entered. No one left. The chapel doors remained locked from the inside. As the final prayer echoed through the room, an icy wind swept across the chapel. The candles surrounding the casket flickered wildly. Then every flame went out at once. For 3 terrifying seconds, the chapel fell into complete darkness. Gasps filled the room. When emergency lights flickered on, screams erupted from every corner of the chapel. The glass casket was still sealed. The white habit was neatly folded inside. The rosary rested exactly where Abigail's hands had once been, but her body was gone. No broken glass, no open lid, no hidden passage, nothing. Several nuns collapsed in shock, while others cried uncontrollably. Mother Superior rushed to inspect the casket herself, but it had never been opened. Within minutes, local police, state investigators, and federal authorities arrived. The convent was sealed off as a crime scene. For the first time in its history, St. Catherine's Convent became the center of a nationwide investigation. And as detectives reviewed the chapel's security footage, they discovered something even more disturbing. At the exact moment the lights went out, every camera had recorded only static. Within hours, St. Catherine's Convent was surrounded by patrol cars, crime scene vans, and investigators from multiple agencies. Every inch of the chapel was photographed, measured, and searched. Detectives questioned each of the 42 nuns separately, hoping one story would contradict another. None did. Every witness described the same terrifying sequence. The freezing wind, the candles going out, 3 seconds of darkness, an empty casket. Forensic teams dusted the glass for fingerprints. The only prints belonged to the sisters who had cleaned it over the years. There are no signs of forced entry, no hidden doors beneath the chapel, and no tunnels under the foundation. Even the locks on every entrance remained engaged from the inside. Authorities reviewed electrical records, searching for an explanation for the sudden blackout. Engineers confirmed there had been no power failure. The surveillance system was even stranger. Every camera inside the chapel stopped recording at 10:17 and 43 seconds a.m. They resumed exactly 3 seconds later. The missing 3 seconds could never be recovered. Investigators expanded their search beyond North Carolina, comparing fingerprints, dental records, and church archives from across the country. Then an analyst uncovered one final document buried deep inside an old diocesan file. Written across the top, in faded black ink, were chilling words. If the body disappears, she has already chosen the next convent. The mysterious document was unsigned, undated, and had no official church seal. Yet the details inside matched every known event with terrifying accuracy. Investigators believed it had been written by someone who had witnessed the phenomenon decades earlier. The final page contained a list. Not names, not dates, just 4 convents across the United States. 3 had already been crossed out. St. Michael's Convent, Burlington, Vermont. Holy Mercy Convent, Dubuque, Iowa. St. Catherine's Convent, Asheville, North Carolina. Only one remained untouched. Our Lady of Grace Convent, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Federal agents and church officials quietly traveled there, determined to prevent history from repeating itself. The Mother Superior welcomed them politely, but insisted they had no nun named Abigail Harper. Relieved, the investigators prepared to leave. As they reached the front gate, a young novice walked across the courtyard carrying a basket of fresh bread. She greeted everyone with a gentle smile. "Good afternoon. I'm Sister Abigail." Every investigator froze. The woman looked exactly like every photograph collected from 1923, 1974, and 2024. The same face, the same voice, the same tiny scar beneath her left ear. Before anyone could stop her, Mother Superior smiled warmly and said, "She arrived about 3 weeks ago. Everyone here already loves her." One investigator slowly checked the calendar. Exactly 1 week remained, before the end of her first month. The investigation in Santa Fe, New Mexico, became one of the most closely guarded operations ever conducted around a religious institution. Agents remained near Our Lady of Grace Convent day and night, determined to witness whatever happened at the end of Sister Abigail Harper's first month. But Abigail never tried to run. She never behaved strangely. She smiled, prayed, worked in the kitchen, cared for the elderly sisters, and spoke of nothing except serving God. Every psychological evaluation found her calm, compassionate, and completely ordinary. Even her fingerprints and DNA belonged to a living, healthy woman. On the 30th day, officers, doctors, priests, and every nun in the convent gathered inside the chapel. Midnight came. Nothing happened. The tension slowly faded. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., the chapel bells rang on their own. The doors slammed shut. The lights went out. When they returned only seconds later, Sister Abigail was lying peacefully before the altar. She was dead. There were no wounds, no poison, no sign of illness. The investigators looked at one another in disbelief. without saying a word. The Mother Superior quietly whispered the same instruction found in the forgotten archives. Do not bury her. The case remains officially unsolved. No scientific explanation has ever accounted for the identical woman appearing across generations, dying after 1 month and returning to another convent. Some believe she was blessed. Others believe she was cursed. And a few still wonder, which convent is she walking into today? If you've made it this far, then you're one of the few who knows the complete story of Sister Abigail Harper, a nun who was welcomed with open arms, died in multiple convents across the United States, whose body remained untouched by time for more than a decade, and then vanished before dozens of eyewitnesses without leaving a single clue behind. But here's the question no investigator, priest, scientist, or historian has ever been able to answer. If Abigail truly died, who keeps returning? Was she a miracle sent to test the faith of those who met her? Was she trapped in a supernatural cycle no human could escape? Or was something far darker wearing the face of an innocent nun, moving from one convent to another for reasons no one has yet discovered? Remember, every witness swore they saw the same woman. Every record confirmed she died. Every grave proved she was buried. Yet somehow, she always came back. Now it's your turn to decide. What do you think really happened to Sister Abigail Harper? Leave your theory in the comments. Share this story with someone who loves unsolved mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe because the next case may be even more disturbing than this one. Sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't the ones we can explain.